This is my little Valentine's miniature ghost kit, and I'm going to show you how I painted and assembled it. First, I spray the ghosts and the envelopes with a flat white primer. I lightly hot glued this ghost to a platform, making him easier to paint, and the paints I start with are white, flag red, and jet black Apple Barrel brand acrylic paint. Even though I use a flat white primer, I do a couple of coats of white on the ghosts just to make sure it's an even coat of white all the way around. Next, I use jet black on the eyes, and then a few coats of flag red for the heart. Next, I put the girl ghosts on a platform, and the colors I use are light pink, velvet crush, and jet black. I do a couple of coats of the light pink, and then I use the jet black for the eyes and the eyelashes. And after that, I use the velvet crush for the top of the eyes for some eyeshadow. Next, for the envelopes, I use antique parchment and fuchsia. The envelopes are pretty simple. I just paint each of them with the antique parchment, not worrying about hitting the hearts, and then when that dries, I paint the hearts with the fuchsia. Next, I use flat red primer for the arch. You can still use the flat white primer, I just use the red because I had it and it's a closer color to brown. I hot glued it to a platform, and the colors I use for the arch are burnt umber, white, flag red, and bright magenta. I give the arch one good coat of the burnt umber, and then I use a soft, dry brush to blot on the flag red, the bright magenta, and the white to give it kind of like a flowery look and not worrying about if the colors mix. After all of the pieces are dry, I like to spray them down with a satin clear finish. After the arch is dry, I have these two pink foam flocks, and I take a little sample of each and kind of rip it up into smaller pieces, mixing and bunching them up together, and then I use some Mod Podge and dab it on all over the arch, and I stick the foam flock to the Mod Podge on the arch to give it more of a 3D flowery look. While the arch is drying, I take the wooden disc and I use some burnt umber, and I paint a coat or two of the burnt umber all around the disc. After that, I get some Mod Podge and a soft brush, and I do a few coats of the Mod Podge onto the disc. It does soak in pretty fast, so it's good to do a couple of thick coats so that it doesn't dry up before you put the next part on. Next, you add the green grass mix and the pink grass mix, and I like to use a small Tupperware to put the wooden disc in to catch all of the grass. And I start with the green grass mix. I sprinkle some onto the wooden disc, making sure I leave some room for the pink grass mix. And after adding the pink grass mix and removing the excess, this is what it should look like. Next, I highly recommend making a sealer for your piece, that way the grass doesn't flake off, and I do 1 part Mod Podge and 3 parts water. And I like to make a big container of it, that way I don't always have to make it every time I make a new project. And you can add it and apply it with a spritzer bottle. I prefer a spritzer bottle, but if you do not have one, you can use a paintbrush and gently apply it onto the piece with the paintbrush. Using the spritzer bottle, I spray the entire piece down really well with the spray glue, trying to make sure I don't miss any spots. After it is completely dry, I glue the arch onto the wooden disc, and I like to use hot glue just because it sticks a lot easier and dries a lot faster. And I glue the arch towards the back of the disc, that way you have room for the ghosts and the letters and everything else for the front. Next, I glue in both of the ghosts back towards the arch. Then I glue down the letters, partially stacking them on top of each other towards the front. I use these 3 colored foam flocks and these 2 colors of rocks. And first, I put a little bit of hot glue in the back and putting the darkest shade foam flock on top, making like a bush. Then doing a smaller area behind the white ghost with the lightest shade foam flock. And then one more time next to the pink ghost with the middle shade foam flock. And with a hot glue gun again, I just put little dabs of glue in random areas and place down some of the rocks. It is a good idea to use the sealer too on the bushes that we made. So this time I used a paintbrush and just dabbed it on. Once it dries, it will harden up and it won't flake nearly as much as it would have if you didn't seal it. And you can still use a spritzer bottle for this part. I just did not want to use a spritzer bottle because I didn't want to accidentally spray my minis that I had already painted. This is the end result, and this is just how I painted and assembled it. You can paint it and assemble it however you want to. It's a fairly easy diorama to make. And if you are interested, it is up on my Etsy at scenicuriosities.com. You will see my Etsy link. And this is the Patreon exclusive mini that comes with this kit. If you are a Phantom patron and you buy this kit, you will get this exclusive mini. If you have any questions on anything, please reach out and I will be happy to help.